All right, it's 2 o'clock. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. So we've only got 6 people on today. We'll give them a couple minutes here. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I think maybe a couple of you have seen this presentation. It's on cybersecurity and passwords. But we'll go ahead and go through it today. And wanted to thank everybody again during this event, and thank you for your participation in these weekly webinars that we're putting on. If you have any ideas for further webinars, just let us know. We're looking at doing one or two going back to work. I'm in a technology group, a national, or really international technology group, and we're looking to put out surveys to gauge what everybody's looking at about remote work and going back to work in the future. So if you're interested in participating in that and getting the results of those surveys, we'll be part of that as well. So just let me know. The agenda for today is to discuss cybersecurity threats, using passwords as a defense against those threats, about NIST standards, and then what we can do to help and what we do here at IntelliPoint. Housekeeping, again, we have we're on mute currently, and we have the chat feature. I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and turn off the mute so you can unmute yourself. Since we just have a few people here, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and turn that off. So if you want to, all right, I'll turn that off. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question as we go through here, feel free. All right, cybersecurity threats. So I know everybody's aware of a lot of the cybersecurity threats that are going on today. The landscape is pretty threatening, and then with this COVID event, it's even getting worse with the bad guys out there. You know, you have social hacking, you have phishing, a lot of ransomware still going on. They're doing a lot of calling now. I mean, just low level, even just trying to gather credentials with people working from home. So they're really trying to step it up to get into the networks and where the real lucrative data and financial information is. So you really need to be aware. The largest threat, of course, is the end user and passwords. 81% of company data breaches are due to poor passwords. Here are, I think this is 2018 or 2017, the top 10 passwords used by end users. Not very secure. And I know Derek, if he would chime in here, he's seen a lot of these used in the past with clients. So
I would agree with that.
So employee tendencies are that a lot of times, I mean, you have so many sites and so many credentials and username and passwords to remember. So the tendency is to reuse them. So you use something for your personal site that you also use at work, or you just tweak it a little bit because you can't remember it. So again, it becomes a poor practice of trying to manage it, keep secure, and just have a credential that you can remember, and it's really tough. So what happens is, because passwords are the key to get into a lot of our systems, is hackers have come up with different ways to crack systems or to gain access to systems. Here's some of the different ways that these cyber criminals use. Things like rainbow tables, dictionary attacks. To prepare ourselves and to understand how the criminal mind works. We've even used some of the tools that they use. Rainbow tables are credentials that have been gleaned from widespread breaches, and so you've heard, like, when they broke into Target or Yahoo or LinkedIn, Equifax. So they garner a lot of personal information that they sell on the dark web, and they accumulate that and put it into rainbow tables, which are just a bunch of passwords, and then they use these cracking tools where they can take encrypted passwords, and which most of the time they get encrypted passwords from these breaches, but they can run them against these rainbow tables and hack them pretty darn quick. But there's all kinds of other ways that they get passwords, but that's one of the main ways that they get it. And nowadays, the social engineering is big, as I was mentioning earlier, with the stay-at-home and the work from home. There's been a lot of social engineering going on. So it's just being aware of it, and the training aspect. I can't stress how much how important it is to train the end user. The more knowledge they have and understanding they have of how susceptible they are and what to do, best practices wise, can really help thwart a lot of these breaches. So passwords with complexity. So most passwords in today's day and age and the past require you to have complexity. So it has to be a certain length, usually 8 characters. It has to have a capital letter, lowercase letter, a number, and a symbol in it. So you end up having something like this: my password, exclamation point. But then it has to be changed periodically. Some, depending on the system, every 30, 60, 90 days, it needs to be changed. So what do you end up doing? You end up adding a 2 to it. And then after the next 30, 60, 90 day period, you end up adding the 3, and a 4, and a 5, to the point where it's easy if your password gets leaked, even if it's just the first my pass, p at word with the exclamation point. If it gets leaked or gets compromised, then the systems and programs that these hackers have out there, they try every variation of that password, and it's easy to break those. If you want to see if you've been breached, here's a website, Have I Been Pwned? You go on that site, and it's secure. I mean, you shouldn't have to worry about it. I know a lot of people say, well, what if I stick my information in there? All you're doing is sticking your email address in there, and then it searches through the dark web breaches and brings back where your username has been used or been breached. So if you get a chance to use that, use your personal one as well. Plug it in there just to see where your password's been breached, and it's usually, that means that a lot of your personal information is available on the dark web. So NIST is a standard. It's a government agency that's non-regulatory, but they provide guidance to the government, which really filters down into industries and even worldwide for setting standards for technology, science technology. So a couple surprises I found in the NIST guidelines, which came out, it's been about 2 years ago now, is no more forced password changes. So once you set your password, you don't have to change it, and rid the need for password complexity. No uppercase, lowercase, number, and special character. So those were surprises for me, but as I move forward here, you understand why these suggestions came forward. So these are the 5 NIST standards when it comes to passwords. So instead of passwords, number 1, they recommend that you adopt long passphrases. So not just a short password with complexity, adopt long passphrases, and we'll get more into that later. Avoid password changes. If you think that your password's been compromised, that's when you would change it, and only then. And use multi-factor authentication. I like to put a little asterisk next to number 3. Multi-factor or 2-factor authentication can alleviate a lot of the worry around passwords in cybersecurity. So multi-factor really helps solidify, even if your password gets into the wild, if you have multi-factor authentication, it really helps protect you. Number 4, use secure connections, and number 5, use a password or passphrase manager. So the first one, adopt long passphrases. It's probably hard to see here, but that first one is a complex password. And so the complex password, if you notice, it's easy. It's difficult to guess, but it's easy for a computer to break. But it's hard for a person to remember, and mostly if you have to change it periodically. And it has 20 bits of entropy. Entropy is just a lack of order, predictability. And that's how they measure password or passphrase how secure a password is, and how long it takes. So this Troubadour would take about 3 days to break. And these are old algorithms, so this is probably a couple years old too. And then this one here, which is a passphrase, correct horse battery staple, which are 4 random words, is hard for a computer to break, and it has its entropy is a lot deeper, and so it's harder for a computer to break, but it's easier for a person to remember. So adopting long passphrases, if you go to this website, howsecureismypassword.net, and if you feel like you want to, type a password in, maybe not put your password in. If you want to, go ahead. I mean, it as far as I know, it's secure. You shouldn't have any issues with it. Plug it in and just see how long it would take for a cyber criminal with the tools to be able to break it. The reason I put these here, because it'll tell you in years, maybe it'll take a quadrillion years if you use a long pass phrase rather than a short one like password 123, which would take 10 seconds to break. So what I recommend for passphrases is to use Diceware, a manual method for creating passphrases. And I have, if you're interested in adopting these, I do have the tools to create passphrases. I have a Diceware list, and they do have Diceware programs online, but again, they're using algorithms, so I recommend using the manual method. And take a die or take 5 dice. I have dice. If you don't have dice, I can ship you some dice. And take the dice and just roll the numbers. And what you get, if you can see here, there are there are 5 digits and then a word. So you roll the die 5 times, or you take 5 die and just roll them all at one time. Look that number up on the Diceware table, and that's your first word. It's a random word. Then you take it and roll it again. So you roll it 5 times. We at IntelliPoint have a requirement that the password be a minimum of 20 characters in length. And so then you take that password. Once you use it for 2 or 3 days, you'll be able to remember it. You'll memorize it. It takes a little bit to log in, but it becomes second nature to you at that point. The other recommendation is avoid password changes. The reason they ask you to avoid password changes, what happens is when you change your password and you have to change it for multiple sites, it's going to be hard to remember. People start writing it down. I mean, I've gone into offices, they got a Post-it note on their monitor with their passwords, or under their keyboard, or they write it on a piece of paper and stick it in their wallet. I mean, they'll put passwords in all kinds of weird places. Just open a drawer and there's a list of all the passwords. I go to my dad's house. He has a piece of paper on his end table, every username and password to every site he has. So it's just not secure. So avoid password changes. Multi-factor authentication, again, this is one of the best ways to thwart access to your systems. If you have, our recommendation is that if you have a site that supports multi-factor, enable it. IntelliPoint, every vendor, every system that supports multi-factor authentication, we utilize. So everybody we use a system called Duo, and it works great. And so what multi-factor authentication is one of a few, one of 3 different ways. So it's knowledge. So your username and password. So everybody has a username and password to get into the system. So you have to have that knowledge. And so it's either knowledge, possession, or inheritance. So it's at least 2 out of those 3 you have to have. So almost always its username and password would be the one. The second one can be possession or inheritance. Possession is have your smartphone. So you type in username and password. In our case, like I said, Duo. Duo would identify you that, okay, the credentials are correct. So I'm going to send a secure message to your smartphone. It could be a token or bank card or whatever, but your smartphone. With Duo, you just click on it, check mark, and it automatically logs you in. Others, it'll send you usually a 6 or 8 number code that you have to type in, and it lets you in the system. Inheritance is something that is inherent to your person, to you, the user. So biometrics, fingerprint, facial recognition, or whatever would be a second one. So as I said, multi-factor authentication is huge. We were really highly recommending that all of our clients implement multi-factor authentication. If you have to comply to any regulatory body, multi-factor authentication is almost always something that you have to have in place. As a matter of fact, just about everything that we're discussing today has to be in place when it comes to PCI or HIPAA or whatever regulations you need to adhere to. Use secure connections. So the question here is, and go ahead and unmute yourself and let me know. So this is a website, and so this is a secure website. So can anybody tell me how I know that this is a secure website? Anybody want to unmute themselves and let me know how this is a secure website? Nobody?
The lock and HTTPS for a security certificate?
Yep. So if you see the green lock there, it says secure HTTPS. This is a secure website. So this is a legitimate website, right, Kingsley?
We would believe so.
So let me go to the next screen here. So now, do you still believe it's a legitimate website? If you notice, it says,
GA.
yeah, so this is a secure website, but it's not a legitimate website. So a lot of people have been trained to look for the secure, but they don't look any further. So what hackers are doing now is they're setting up secure websites, but they're not legitimate. So this one is imitating or impersonating a Netflix website. So they make it look just like Netflix. They misspell Netflix a little bit because you don't look that closely. -com.ga, which is a country name for Georgia. So this is not a legitimate, yet it is secure. And there are now secure agencies out there like Let's Encrypt, where you can get a certificate, an SSL certificate for free. So these hackers don't even have to pay for certificates anymore. They can go out and they can get a free certificate, set up a secure website that is there to breach your credentials, to try to trick you into going to their site and entering your credentials. So beware. So you have to be very aware of using secure connections. One way that that the entities have been looking to thwart the use of SSL is an enhanced SSL. So if you notice these two sites here, you have eBay, which is secure. But look at the one below. The one below is JP Morgan Chase. So a lot of financial institutions are starting to use this one. It's an enhanced SSL. So what it is you can't just go on and register or purchase an SSL certificate. You have to register it to a physical address of the business that has to be verified. So if you do go to a site like that, if you click on the little I that's in next to the lock there, and drill down into it, you'll see that the enhanced SSL certificates are recorded and registered to a physical location of that company that's been registered. Another thing you need to look out for using secure connections is there's a lot of bots and crawlers going across the internet. This is one of them, showed in images. So they take and they crawl the internet and they find open ports, which are common ports used for different types of communication on the internet. And if you notice, the two screens that are here is just two sample screens. They're logins. They're the logins for servers. So these are open server connections to businesses out there. So a hacker just needs to log or to subscribe to one of these sites that crawls the internet, and it's already done for them. All they have to do is go out and use their hacking tools, credentials, and they can zero in on these companies because they're open ports. There's even, I went onto this site just to see how deep they go. There were open ports with cameras in people's homes that they would scan. You could see into people's homes with these. So just be sure that you tighten down the hatches when it comes to your connections. Another thing to be aware of, secure connections, public Wi-Fi. So we have, or I have a device like this on screen here. It's called a Wi-Fi Pineapple that we can have a source, a power source, a mobile power source, just like a little power brick, attach it to the Wi-Fi Pineapple and stick it into a backpack. So what a cyber criminal would do was they'd take this with their computer, they'd go to a coffee shop like Starbucks, go to Panera Bread with their backpack, set it up on a table, and I mean, it's in their backpack, so they're not going to see the pineapple. And they'll create a Wi-Fi connection, let's say in Starbucks, and maybe call it Starbucks free Wi-Fi, where Starbucks may be called Starbucks guest or whatever. And when people come in and they see the Starbucks free Wi-Fi, they'll connect to that Wi-Fi connection. Well, when they connect to that Wi-Fi connection, it's going through this pineapple. And that cyber criminal is now what they call man in the middle. And what they are, all the data that's information is being transmitted from your device goes through their device and then out to the internet and vice versa. So they can capture that information as it goes across their device. So if you are in a public Wi-Fi area, we recommend, if you see here the Sophos mobile security app, there's an app you can download onto your phone that will check it for you and notify you if it's secure or not. Another way just to be more preventative is to turn off your Wi-Fi and just use your data if you're going to get onto maybe your banking site, your banking app, or use some type of VPN connectivity so that you're not allowing that information to fall in the hands of some cyber criminal. And the last one is use a password or passphrase manager. So again, I have probably a couple hundred sites that I have registered that I log into on probably a monthly basis or quite often. And it's just very hard to be able to remember. I mean, it's almost impossible to be able to remember all your credentials and passwords for all these. So recommendation is to use a password manager to where you can store and manage the passwords that's encrypted. And there's a couple that we recommend. One that we recommend is called LastPass. They have a free version of it, so I would recommend that you use at least the free version. If you're an IT care client of ours, you would have access to one called MyGlue, and I'll get into the difference of those two here. But they have web browser extensions, so it helps you log in almost automatically. So you can launch the site. You can do a search in your Vault, and you can launch the site from the add-in for the browser, and it'll launch the site and log in for you automatically, which is very helpful. So you don't have to remember your credentials. They'll store it in your password manager for you. This is just about utilizing it. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of systems still don't support passphrases. So you still have to create a complex password. And again, what I suggest is that you use the password generator that's built into the password manager to create your password for you and store that password into your password vault. That way you don't have to remember it. Let your password manager do its job for you. And again, these password managers, you want to make sure you use a passphrase for the password managers, and for sure use multi-factor authentication. Use two-factor, because you don't want anybody to get into a password manager, because then they got the keys to the kingdom, of course. So you gotta keep it very tied down. And the password managers, what's nice about those too, if you sign up for a new website and you create a username and password for it, it will recognize it's a new site for you with a username and password, and it'll ask you if you want to store that password information into your vault. So the autofill really helps speed up a lot of your logins to different sites. And you can even store information like credit card, debit card information. I don't go that far. You could. The autofill I do like with business and home address, so that you can, a lot of times I'll be filling out a lot of information on websites, And instead of typing in my name, address, phone numbers, and all that, I have it stored in the password manager, which allows me to autofill all those as well. It saves me a lot of time. These are just the password managers that I mentioned. There's others out there, but we highly recommend the LastPass, which is free. The only thing about LastPass free is that you can't manage it. So if you want to provide it for your entire business, then I would recommend LastPass Enterprise. There is a cost involved for that. But what's nice about that too is that if somebody leaves your organization, you can manage those username and passwords that they have. The other one is MyGlue, which is, again, part of, if you're an IT Care client of ours, you have access to the MyGlue Lite, because we do store some credentials within, a lot of credentials, as a matter of fact, at least for your systems, within our documentation system, which is part of the MyGlue. And so we can give access to certain personnel within your organization to those username and passwords to be able to utilize for your business. Or you can provide for $2 per user the MyGlue that allows you to change, so they can add their own username and passwords to it as well. The big limitation for MyGlue is it only works with the Chrome browser, where LastPass works with just about every browser that's out there. So in summary, use passphrases for highly secure sites like financial sites, bank sites, and then use auto-generated passwords for the other websites, maybe your Netflix or Hulu or Yahoo or whatever. Use those and let your password manager manage those for you. Avoid password changes. Use multi-factor wherever possible. And again, I kind of hone in on that one. Multi-factor is huge. If you don't have multi-factor, please contact us. You really need to get it in place. Only use secure connections. Again, I talk about Wi-Fi, the SSL, the enhanced SSL. Just be aware of all that. Avoid public Wi-Fi. And use a password manager. It'll make your life a lot easier. If you're an IT Care client as well, we have the cybersecurity training. If you're not an IT Care client of ours right now, during this COVID event, we can offer you for free the cybersecurity training for your employees. Just reach out to me or one of my associates, and we can get that set up for you. And we also have a password passphrase company policy that I created that I can share with you to help you put that policy in place, and that really helps, again, when it comes to regulations and if you're dealing with any type of regulatory body. So my recommendations, again, passphrases, 4 to 6 words, avoid any changes, and these, again, conform to NIST. And again, my number one is multi-factor, two-factor authentication. If you can't do any of the other ones, do multi-factor, two-factor authentication. I can't stress that enough. Secure connections and use a password manager. And again, if you have any questions or comments or need support, here's how you can get support from IntelliPoint. Of course, we got support at IntelliPoint.net. Phone number for West Virginia office and Cincinnati office there. We have our portal that's on our website. It's highlighted in green there. Just go to the customer portal. And I'm going to go ahead and unmute. I think I already did unmute everybody, so you can unmute yourself now if you want. So if you have any questions, now's the time to ask. Anybody have anything?
Appreciate your program today.
You're welcome. Did you garner anything out of it?
I always do. I've never
Yay.
the Sophos tool, but then again, I turn off my Wi-Fi and just use my mobile cellular when I'm out in public like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've used a product called eWallet since my BlackBerry days, and I haven't changed it yet. It's never shown up on the list with LastPass and the others, but I haven't had any problems with it, and it does a backup to Dropbox in a special folder. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll pay for it at some point.
Yeah.
I don't mean pay for it. I do license it.
I understand. Yeah, Dropbox has beefed up their security. They used to be pretty wide open though, almost.
I had an incident changing phones when my Authenticator app wasn't backed up, and found myself having to go back to an organization and reset my password with secret questions because I had two-factor authentication in there, and on my new phone, I hadn't transferred those to my new phone.
Mm-hmm.
So, little word of caution: we got to learn a little bit more about moving those secure credentials that are in your Authenticator app, or at least figure out how to move them from one phone to another.
Yeah, and a lot of the applications that we have that we basically manage the multi-factor, we can resend out new activation codes. But you're right, that is a risk that you take, and a lot of the programs allow you to use those one-time codes just for that purpose. But 9 times out of 10, nobody writes those one-time codes down, so then we're stuck with working with support to get back into our accounts. But that is something to note.
Yeah.
I appreciate your programs every week. Fully support you, and now I'm going to get myself ready for some interviews for staff on Teams.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Kingsley.
Thank you.
Joe, you have anything, or I'm not sure who's on United Talent right there. You guys have anything? Was it helpful?
Hey guys, it's Tammy.
Hey, Tammy.
Hey, Tammy.
No, I'm good. I only got to listen like to the last probably 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch the recording.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having them.
No problem. Joe, you have anything? Nope. All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and sign off. And again, I appreciate you guys for attending, and look in your email later this week for what we'll be presenting next Tuesday.
All right.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.